Okay, in this use case, this is going to be a fun one to break down with you. We actually were able to save this company a full hire by implementing some Salesforce automation and integrating another marketing platform they were using, eventually getting them to this number that you see up here. So $78,000 they were spending on this person in the company, in their marketing department. And better than all of that, we got this implemented within 17 working days. So really, really quick to be able to see this impact. What we were able to do, which is so cool, is save them, again, like I said, a full hire. And instead of that person or the company feeling like, okay, we got to hire someone else to do this actual marketing thing that we thought this person would be doing, what we did is we were able to automate all this so that the person that was already there doing this tedious work could actually go on to do what they wanted her to be hired to do. So awesome way to be able to kind of see that impact go full round for the company. What we'll do to break this down is talk about the problem they had. So how'd they get here? The pain they saw from not solving this problem, the financial impact that they had on the money side as well as the time side, the solution we built. So we want to work you through this step by step, what we actually implemented, how we did it, how we went about it, so you can get an idea of our approach, screenshots to reference all of that, and then the improvement we saw from the business after we were done working with them. So what did we see overall when this was completed? So jumping right into it, we have this big number we're claiming up here, right? A full hire salary that we're able to save here. So how did we get there? How was the business in this position to begin with? Well, the problem here is this is pretty common that we see. All of these that we do, all these use cases are common problems that we see in the mid-market realm. Anytime you're in this situation, this is usually our bread and butter, who we love to work with, because we have such an extensive background with them. We worked with so many of these companies in this stage of the business. We worked with a lot of them, myself and my team, when we were full hires, or I guess I should say when we worked full-time for somebody else, not consulting. And so we just know these problems really well. And this is a problem that is really common around this stage of the business, where you hire someone, they come in with a great attitude, they have a lot of skill set, they have a lot of expertise, but because they have a great attitude of just trying to solve problems for you, they're willing to do a lot of different things. And that ends up leading to putting them in these positions where they're maybe not necessarily doing what you want them to do. It's crucial work that has to be done. Somebody's got to do it, but you don't really want to be paying somebody salaries, wage to be doing odds and ends, the actual job that is taking place, right? You want to be able to outsource that, automate that, eliminate that, one of those three, versus paying somebody a salary to just manage it. So again, it's common, it's understandable. At this stage of the business, you're kind of just doing what you can do to get by. The important part, I would say, is recognizing that this is happening and then trying to figure out a way to cut the cord on this as soon as possible, so that you aren't just having all this money sucked away from your business, and you can put that money towards something that's actually useful, right? Ad spend, marketing, better employees, better tools for your employees, whatever it might be, to try to well equip you guys to scale versus, again, spending it on problems that could be automated like this one. So they're sitting in that. Again, what they're using is a marketing tool called Apollo. You may have heard of it, apollo.io, and it integrates actually with Salesforce. If you're not familiar with the tool, what it does is quite a few things. You can get leads from there. You can kind of scrape for emails, things like that, but you also can enrich data. And in this specific use case, a lot of this ended up being data enrichment. There's some other tools out there. Zoom Info is another one that kind of does stuff like that. But what this does, more importantly, is you can basically upload your contacts from Salesforce or your leads. Let's say you do a webinar. This is all marketing data. So let's say you do a webinar and you have all these leads. You can put it in there, and as long as you have some decent information like company and things like that, what it will do, instead of you manually going and filling this all out, it will enrich that data by pulling in what their emails are, what their companies are, what their headcount is, all your ideal client information that you're going to want to know. It does that automatically for you. So it's an awesome tool. It takes a lot of time away from having to do stuff like that. And then again, it can scrape for leads and things like that, scrape for emails, I should say, to get you leads, stuff like that. So they were using that, but they also use Salesforce, right? And they use Salesforce. If you've heard any of our other videos, it really, at this stage of the business with this size, you want to have Salesforce be like the brain of your company. In other words, you want to use Salesforce as much as you can as your main platform. And it's okay to use other tools, obviously, but you want to push all the data into one spot, your CRM. So if you're not using Salesforce, whatever CRM you are using, you should try to push your data there because it just makes things a lot more efficient and you're able to make decisions a lot quicker as a business, having everything in one spot. You can trust the data when it's all there. So we have these two tools being used perfectly fine, but they're not talking to each other. So we have Apollo and then we have Salesforce. We're using Apollo for all these leads getting enriched, even scraping for some emails in some cases, but we're not using the full potential of it because it's not automatically taking that info and pushing it over to Salesforce. Somebody's doing it manually. Either we're exporting a list and then using a list and doing some kind of data load maybe. In some cases, it was manual. So you're doing a lot of this management of leads and webinars and marketing information to enrich data and do other marketing style ideas, I guess you could say, inside of Salesforce versus just connecting the two. So that's a huge problem they had. Again, paying for two platforms not connected, not really reaching full potential. And a lot of this is repeatable work. I mean, we know exactly what needs to happen when, and when it's that case, it should be automated. So that's currently where they were sitting when we took this project on. The pain they saw from not solving this, you'd have a lot of data being put into Salesforce manually. So this would take a lot of the time to do that. Okay, so let's talk about the pain that this company saw as well. So the pain that they saw here from not solving this problem, you're doing a lot of data, putting that into Salesforce manually. Okay, so that's obviously gonna take a lot of time. You're not using some of the automation tools that you could have to be able to help out with that. We also advised on some other things along the way on this project, one being data loader. If you're not familiar with that, what you can do is you can take like Excel sheets or Google Sheets of data and run it through something called the data loader for Salesforce, and it will update a lot of that information inside of Salesforce. So some things like that also came up in this project to help us get to where our end goal was here. But the point being is when we started, a lot of this was manual. And that leads to a lot of resources being used in a poor way, right? Like we're using a full person to do this job all year long when we could be using a lot of automation to get that done, right? And save them money, help them use their funds that they just had raised a lot better, more wisely, and put it towards things that will actually grow the business. We saw a lot of incomplete lead data. So obviously, if you're not getting that enrichment over there fairly quickly, then you have a lot of leads just kind of sitting inside of Salesforce because we don't know all the information. We don't know who to reach out to. Maybe it's incomplete. We don't trust it. So you have a lot of incomplete lead data, which is a lot of wasted outreach efforts, right? Like if we're not taking advantage of these people that raised their hand and said that they were interested in the product, it's a waste on that front too. So you're wasting a lot of information and a lot of time and money as well by the SDRs or the sales reps or the marketing team that went out to those events to try to get those leads in the first place. Full hire to complete this job, we've mentioned that a couple times, so inflated staff and payroll. Leads are not prioritized, which leads to missed business opportunities, slower response times, you're losing deals to competitors. So we saw all these three things happen as well. So the impact we saw, this one's pretty straightforward math because you just have this one person that was doing this. So obviously 8-hour workday, you have an annual salary of 78 grand, almost 79. That comes out to this hourly rate, just so that you're aware of like basically how much time per hour this person is using up from the company's funds to do these kinds of efforts. Obviously, we could take these two things. We don't really need to do too much math in this one because we already know what they get paid in the long run. If you didn't though, and this was slightly different, let's say it was 7 hours, we could do some math here to figure out how much time and how much money they would be spending. Since we know it's the full hire, in this case, it is the 78 grand. And then the yearly time spent, obviously, this probably differs from job to job, right? On average, you have around 250 working days. That includes some time for vacation and stuff like that. So 250 working days being put towards this specific problem. Okay, so what did we do about it? Like, what was the solution we introduced? How did we go about doing that? Let's walk you through this. So what we do first is this discovery stage, and then we move on to these 3 other steps that we'll always follow. The reason we do this is so that we have a very trusted, very confident team who's going to take our solution and be able to implement it inside of Salesforce. So this has been tested out. It's the best way to keep everybody on the same page, and it just shows we're really thorough, really, about what we try to do. We want to build something that's scalable, that's reliable, that's something you can use in the long run. So this is the best way that we've found to do this and stay on top of it. So we start off with the discovery, and this just allows us to basically sit with the team. So in this unique situation, they already kind of knew the issue before we got in, so we didn't have to do too much monitoring to figure out the problem. But what we did is we watched how this user was going through these two platforms. How did they use Salesforce? How did they use Apollo? And then we monitored those steps. So it's like, what are you doing here that's repeatable? Is a lot of this automated? Can we take care of this in the integration? So we're kind of asking ourselves those questions to figure out, how do we cut out time here so this person doesn't have to do this annoying task every single time, right? And a lot of it was repeatable, and a lot of this actually was just going to be solved by connecting the two together. So what we did on the build side is did exactly that. We took Apollo and we integrated it with Salesforce. The word integrate, all that means is you just connect them together. So the cool thing about Salesforce, if you are new to this, is it's such a large CRM that one of the perks there is that it pretty much has an integration for any other popular tool out there because it's so large as a CRM. So a lot of these other tools that come out of the woodworks, they're a little bit smaller companies. They make sure that they can connect to Salesforce because Salesforce is such a large product or tool that people use. So in this case, Apollo already connected to it. And when that happens, this is way, way easier, right? Like you just basically go into their settings and connect the two. There's a little bit more to that, obviously, that we know how to do with the custom mapping and sync settings and the way it should be set up. But this piece here specifically, they already basically can talk to each other. You just have to connect it. The real work for our team comes in with getting the actual setup right. But the cool part here is this is ready to go. This is out of the box kind of functionality. So we connect to those. The sync settings is stuff like, when do we want Apollo to sync up with Salesforce? When do we want to pull records out? That kind of thing. How often do we want that to happen? Is there a trigger for it? Custom mapping is when we push records into Salesforce or we pull records out of Salesforce. What does this field in Salesforce mean to the field here in Apollo? Like which ones match with one another? That's what you want to figure out. And this is kind of what this will look like. So you go in here, like I said, really easy. We're inside of Apollo here. And then there's this app, what it looks like, and you can just basically select this app and hit connect, right? There's a HubSpot one, Zapier. You can always do like I shouldn't say always, but I would say a large majority of the time, there's like, you can do a custom API. That's why I mean like this can get technically harder, but there's usually a way to do it, right? So in these cases though, they already have Salesforce ready to go and you just click the button. Once you do that, it connects it up. You sign in with your Salesforce credentials and you're good to go. Once you're inside there, this is what that next part will look like with push and pull records and what you want to do inside of here. This is the setup piece that does take a little bit of experience and understanding and caution, I would say the most, because you don't want to push anything in here and have it be wrong and screw up your data. So you have options in here. Won't go through these since this is kind of a separate video at this point, but it does allow you to either take information from Salesforce and pull it into Apollo if you use Apollo as like your main place to kind of look at lead information. And then vice versa. You can take, if you did just go and take like, let's say a webinar and you have 1,000 people, okay, great. They're in Apollo. We enriched the data. This is a great opportunity to push that information that's enriched back into Salesforce. You map it to the lead, it pushes all that information to the lead and you're good to go. There's some other things down here obviously you can do too, but these are the main two that we really helped out a lot with on this project. Okay, and once that was done, you have testing, you have UAT, you have approvals that will take place. So really all this part means over here, without getting too much in the weeds, is we don't want to mess with real life data. So like I said down here, the last thing you want to do is sync this stuff up, push a bunch of records, create all kinds of duplicates inside of Salesforce, and then screw up the Salesforce to where there's a ton of cleanup and tech debt that has to be worried about. Or even worse, things get overwritten and we can't get that information back, right? So that would even be worse than what I just described. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're testing all this stuff first. So when applicable, you want to create these sandboxes. Sandboxes are just testing environments in Salesforce. Like you can create them in quite a few different places. If you don't use Salesforce, HubSpot has them. And it allows you to just test information without having to fear that you're going to ruin something, because it takes a copy of what your real life data is in Salesforce, creates a testing environment, and then you can test with all that data. So we do that. And then UAT is user acceptance testing. That just means whoever is working with us on this project If that's the marketing team, if that's the managers of the marketing team, if that's sales, we don't really care who it is. What we want to do though is work with that team to make sure they test whatever we have built as a solution and make sure it works. So in this case, when we integrate the two, we want to make sure that it's pushing data as appropriate, it's pulling data as appropriate. We have a game plan of who's going to be monitoring all the lead information inside of Salesforce so we can start phasing out this full hire that they have to do this, all that kind of stuff, right? We want to go through those processes with them to make sure that they're well taken care of. Then we want to get their approval before we move forward. Once we get the approval, then we can make sure all this is live. So production, activate, smoke test. Production just means make it live, activate it, make sure everything that we built out is good to go. And then we're going to obviously test one more time inside of your live or production Salesforce to make sure everything is going accordingly. So as we do that, that helps us be very thorough and get everything done as needed. So at the end of the day, what did this do for this company and what could this do for you? Well, the three main things that we always focus on as consultants are reducing costs, making you more money, and scaling better and faster as a business. Those are the three things, myself included as a business, what we all want. We all want these three things to happen at a dramatic level. Like the more I can reduce my costs and the more money I can make and the faster I can scale, the better, right? So all those three things happen here when we're able to take out a full employee to do something else, automate that process, cut things out, use better tools, suggest better strategies to be able to automate things further, as I mentioned throughout this process that we did, and then make you more money because now things are happening faster, right? Like we can use that person that was using time towards this tedious work all day to actually do a better job for you on the marketing side, making the business more money, focusing on better leads, focusing on better strategies, right? You hired them to be that expert, use them for that expertise. Obviously all that and our solution that we've vetted out will help you guys scale better and faster. And then lastly, again, 17 days. The ratio I like to use here at the very end is the equivalent that this company paid us to do this project was like, you would pay me $1 and I would give you $18 back. So a massive, massive ROI on that, right? Is who wouldn't want to pay someone $1 and get $18 back, right? So huge amount of savings, but better yet, such a great investment too, because if this is one-to-one, maybe not worth it, right? Like you're paying me $1 and I give you $1 back. You didn't lose any money, but you didn't gain really any money too. So you want to make sure that this is as low as we can get it. And then this is as high as we can get it, right? We want to give you the best bang for your buck, basically. So if this sounds like a familiar problem, you have some kind of tool like an Apollo or something like that you're using and it's not talking with Salesforce, this can be a great time for us to come into your business and help out with that. So you can hit me up, my team up, anywhere on our website, social media links, DMs, really any place that you feel like is best to reach out to us. And we can come in. We first will give you a full consultation for free. So we do a 30-minute consultation ahead of time just to make sure we're the right fit for your business. And then if we are, we can move fairly quickly to get a contract in place and get into your business. Again, to see something as quick as 17 days and see a massive amount of cost reduction and money made inside of your company. So if any of that sounds helpful to you, like I said, please hit us up and we'll look forward to seeing you over there in our meeting. Appreciate it.